Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Onat, Buyukakkus and Djordje Čenić.
Good morning and welcome to this session about Microsoft's integration Business Central with the Power Platform. My name is Djordje, this is my colleague Onat. And let me just quickly introduce you to both of the sessions that you will see today. We will show how does Business Central integrate with Power Platform. Power Platform enables you to build Power Apps, and it runs on Dataverse, which is a service that stores your data and runs in the cloud in a secure way. Business Central doesn't run on Dataverse, but we integrate with it in various ways. We have a data synchronization with it. We have virtual tables that can show Business Central data and help you manage it. And we also have a Power Platform connector that can integrate with Business Central. And we will show all these three in the next two sessions. In this session, Onat and I will present the data synchronization and how you can extend it to suit your needs. We will show you how to keep your data about customers, vendors, currencies in sync with the Dataverse environment. Then we will show you how to keep your sales-related data in sync with Dataverse. That's items, resources, quotes, orders, invoices, etc. And we will, of course, show you how to customize and extend it. So Power Platform and Dataverse on one side, and Business Central platform and system application on the other side. On Dataverse, you can have Sales app, which is for managing invoices, products, and sales-related entities. And the way you integrate with it, with data synchronization from Business Central is you have two setup pages. First, you do Dataverse connection setup to set up the connection with the base entities, such as customers, vendors, and contacts. And on top of that, you do another setup to make the connection with the sales-related entities. And during this setup, we deploy two solutions, two Power Apps solutions that are needed to make this integration. And of course, you can then have more solutions on either side, Business Central or in Power Platform. So in the next demo, I will show you the dry run of setting up the connection and running the initial full sync between Business Central and Dataverse. We'll show you how to use the assisted setup wizard to set this up, and the wizard will also perform the initial full sync. And it will be a situation in which you already have some data in Business Central and some data in Dataverse, and you would like to couple this existing data. We will show you also how to map option sets, which are data in Business Central, but metadata in Dataverse. And so let's go on with it. So here we have a situation where in Business Central we have some customer records, and these customer records have either a home page that matches with their counterpart in Dataverse, or the first two have a telephone number. The fifth one doesn't have either a home page or a telephone number. And here in Dataverse, I have the same accounts, and they match either on telephone number or on a web page. Then to connect these two systems, I would go to Assisted Setup and choose there's a link to set up connection to Dataverse. And I will now disable this option. This is for virtual entities. My colleague Lukas will show that in the next session. So I will leave only the data sync. I will accept terms of use, and then I will basically enter the URL to my Dataverse environment in this field, and then I will sign in with the administrator. You need to sign in with the administrator of the Dataverse environment during the setup, because during this setup we will auto-generate a user for service-to-service connection. We will import the Power Apps solution that is needed for this integration to work, and the administrator account is required for this. So once you sign in, now we are setting up the user, and then now the administrator is signing in. And when you click next, this is the step of the setup that imports the solution. This usually takes 2 to 3 minutes, but in this demonstration it's shortened. And then when you click next, the system will analyze which data you have in Business Central and which data you have in Dataverse. And it will propose you the strategy for the full sync, for the initial full sync. And remember that in Dataverse we have some customer records, but we don't have any vendors, we don't have any contacts. So for vendors' contacts, it's proposing full synchronization, but for customers, it could see that you have data on both sides. So it's suggesting you to select the coupling criteria. And this is a page where you can set up how you couple your existing data. And I know that half of my customers match on telephone number, so I will choose to match on this as first priority, and as a second priority, I will choose to match on website. I can choose some other options in this page, such as to synchronize right after coupling the records. I can choose the resolution, the conflict resolution strategy. What if during this initial sync a conflict happens, meaning that record is changed on both sides, and I will choose to send the data from Business Central to Dataverse. And lastly, I will choose, if you don't find any match, then just create a new record in Dataverse. So the system is also proposing to choose the coupling criteria for option sets, for payment terms, for shipment methods, and shipping agents. So this before wave 1.22, this was a non-trivial sync because it is metadata in Dataverse, but now you can just do it by with no code. We offer it off the page. So once you set up this coupling criteria, you choose OK. Now the full sync will start. Will start running after you click finish. In a system with very little data, it takes very little time. So now you can see that your data is synchronized. And let's see how it looks in Dataverse. So over in Dataverse, you don't see any new accounts added. This is because I'm signed in with my Dataverse account, but the new accounts were added by the auto-generated application user, which is a non-licensed user that is used for service-to-service connection. And now you can see that this user added more accounts that come from Business Central. It added this customer that was not, that didn't have either a telephone number or a web page, because the coupling did not find a match. Whereas for these customers that were matched, it just synchronized the data from Business Central. And of course, it also, if we look at the vendors, you had a situation where you had a number of vendors in Business Central, but no vendors in Dataverse, and those were also added in in Dataverse, as you can see here. So after you do the initial sync, then you can either continue coupling records manually, and we will show the UI for that in one of the next demos, or the synchronization engine will, via job queue entries, will synchronize the changes between Business Central and Dataverse. So here in the integration table mappings, you have, these are the mappings that where you describe the rules how to map the tables. And this, on the customer mapping, you can see that there's this conflict resolution strategy that we set on the coupling criteria page. You can also set it for another type of conflict, which happens when one of the coupled records gets deleted in one of the systems. You can set that strategy as well. This is from the integration table mapping page. You can see the synchronization jobs and investigate what happened in the last scheduled jobs. To troubleshoot the errors, there are two pages. There is integration synchronization errors page, which shows generic errors that happened during the synchronization. Right now it's empty because we just did a full sync. And then there is the coupled data synchronization errors page. And this is for records that were successfully coupled, but their synchronization failed for some reason, like they were changed in both systems or one of them got deleted. You can set a strategy on the mapping to reduce the number of these errors. And let me also show you the result of the option mapping is that you now have a lot of values came from Dataverse for the shipment methods and shipping agents and payment terms. So that was the dry run of setting up the connection and running the full sync. And to synchronize sales-related data, you have to have the sales app on the Dataverse side. And I will just show you, it's quite simple once you have synchronized the base entities. We also have a wizard for the sales sync, where the connection and the sign-in is not done because you have already done that in the base connection setup. And I will also show you how to get an overview of the integration table mapping for the new feature that we have, and that is the bidirectional sales order sync, which was very much requested from the partners. So to set up sales connection, you just go to assisted setup and choose another. We have set up a connection with Dynamics 365 sales, and you just click next, and here you could just click finish. It would import the solution that is required, but you can also turn on other features in advanced, and one of them is the bidirectional sync of sales orders. And another one, for example, is you can turn on the item availability. So if you turn item availability on, you will from Dataverse, when you make orders in Dynamics 365 sales, you will see the item availability in Business Central. So if you choose these two options and choose finish, now it's importing the integration solution for integration with sales, and it's done. And this normally also takes 3 to 4 minutes, but it was shortened. So let's take a look at the integration table mappings now, specifically the mapping for the orders. Before this release, we used to only synchronize the header, and it was only synchronizing one way from Business Central to Dataverse. But now the synchronization is bidirectional, and if you look at the fields of this sales order mapping, we synchronize more fields from the header. And of course, we also synchronize lines. So if you add lines or modified lines to a coupled order in Business Central, it will be synchronized with Dynamics 365 sales. And one thing to mention is that that this only works for released orders. So if you look at the table filter for the orders, it only works for released. So that is the demo for the synchronization with sales. And now I want to show you one more thing, and that was a requested feature. So when the synchronization jobs run, if you have a change in Business Central on a coupled record, the synchronization engine will wake up the job queue entry and do the sync in near real time. But we didn't have this mechanism from the other side. If a change happens in Dataverse, we did not have a mechanism to wake up the job queue entry. But now we have, in Wave 2.22, we provide this ability, and to make it work, you need to make a cloud flow in the Dataverse environment in Power Automate. So you sign into powerautomate.com in your Dataverse environment, and you create certain flows. And we have also published flow templates. You can find them under templates, and then in the template search string, you just type in Notify Business Central, and you will see these 3 templates. One is for account changes. That's both for customers and vendors, because in Dataverse, there's no dedicated entity for customer. There is account, and it has a subtype, customer, vendor, and other types. And then there's a template for contacts and for currencies. Once you import this flow, there is one thing you need to do, and that is to choose your Business Central environment and your company, a Business Central company in which you have set up the synchronization. If your Business Central is in another Azure AD tenant, then you need to also add a connection. You will see that in the video. So this is a demo of this flow. Let's do this on the vendor mapping, and I will do one thing on the vendor mapping, and that is uncheck this value called synchronize only coupled records. This will make the scheduled sync also bring in new vendors that are created in Dataverse. But by default, it's checked to true. So you would go in the same environment where you have your Dataverse data. You would navigate to either flow.microsoft.com or powerautomate.com. You would import this template. So I already have this template here under Cloud Flows. Let's take a brief look at it. It starts with the Dataverse trigger when a row is added, modified, or deleted. And the only thing you need to do is in the bottom of the flow, you have to choose your Business Central company in the Business Central connector. And here you can see I added another connection because my Business Central tenant is not in the same tenant as Dataverse. If it was in the same tenant, I wouldn't have to add a new connection. And you leave the other values as they are and save the flow. And after you save this flow and add a vendor, let's try to add a vendor. The trigger, the Dataverse trigger will fire when you save a new vendor, and it will call Business Central with the Business Central connector and notify it that a new vendor was added. And if you look at the job queue entries over in Business Central, here are the job queue entries that run the scheduled syncs. And you can see that the vendor job queue entry is in this dormant state, on hold with inactivity timeout. It is waiting for a change. But if we refresh the list, you will see that it has been restarted because a new vendor was added in Dataverse. And as a result, you will see that the vendor is now created in Business Central in near real time. So there is no need to make these job queue entries run unconditionally every 5 minutes, because now you have a mechanism to get notified about both Business Central changes and Dataverse changes. So to conclude this demo, this is a page. If you download this presentation, you have a number of useful links for setting up and running the synchronization, and 2 links for troubleshooting. These are very, very useful links, and I encourage you to read through. And now I'm handing over to my colleague Onat for customization. How can you customize all this?
Yeah, all right. So now that you've seen how you can sync base entities and sales entities on top of that, you might have a question, but I have another solution in my Dataverse environment. How do I synchronize that by extending the existing connection? That is what I'm going to show you today. First, we'll start by creating an integration table object in Business Central using AL table proxy generator tool, also known as alt-pgen. This table will be a normal BC table with a slight difference. It will have a type called CDS, and it will have some properties that will allow you to map that table into a Dataverse table, so that when there is any modification, insertion, or even a get operation in AL, it will convert it to an SDK call and then make a call to Dataverse and get the data or modify the data. Then we'll actually create a list page for that table in BC so that you can actually see all the Dataverse records you have. And then we're going to extend a Business Central page with a lot of actions for coupling and synchronizing. And then, of course, we're going to have to subscribe to some events in a code unit where we allow you to actually insert your custom integration mappings and field mappings. So let's just begin. If you look at the Dynamics 365 Human Resources solution, you'll see down there a table called worker, which is actually quite similar to employee table in Business Central if you look at all the fields in Dataverse. So let's try to sync workers with employees in Business Central. As I said, first we need to create the table in Business Central. How do we do that? In your VS Code extension, under the extensions folder, and of course the AL extension, there's this hidden tool under the bin folder called alt-pgen exe. And how do you run this? You run this through PowerShell. You just need to give it some arguments. I already have a arguments file right here, args.rsp. So you have to give a project, that is the AL project you're working on. The package cachepad is the AL packages so that it actually looks at the symbols while running. Service URI is your organization URI. Entities, and those are the entities that you want to create a table for. Base ID, the object number, of course. When you run this tool, it will actually authenticate to Dataverse, get metadata for that entity that you want to create, and it will also look at the symbols. So if you already have a table in Business Central for that, it will create a table extension with extra fields. If not, it will create a completely new table for it. So let's just do the two-factor authentication. Yeah, all good. Now we will actually connect, retrieve entity metadata, and then create a worker table as an AL table in Business Central, because I don't have it in my symbols. Let's just quickly rename this so that I'll get rid of the compilation errors, and then I'll just move it to the tables folder right there. But if you actually look at this table, you'll see that table type is CDS, and there's this imported property called external name. This actually matches the metadata in Dataverse. That also is the same for all the fields. If you take a look at like one of the fields, let's say status code, you'll see that external name and external type are actually coming directly from Dataverse. So if you write to this table, if you have the connection enabled, we'll automatically convert this to an SDK call and write it in Dataverse. Now let's create a list page for this one. Yep, the source table is the table that I've just created, and I've added some fields that I actually want to see. I also have this important action called create from Dataverse. All you have to do is under CRM integration management call create new records from CRM and give the record. They will actually create the Dataverse record in BC as an employee. It will schedule a job. The set currently coupled Dataverse record, this will just set a variable. I'll get to that one later. This is in order for you to use this page for coupling. So now let's look at a table extension I have for the employee so that I mark if a record is coupled to CRM or not. It's important that you use this exact name, coupled to CRM, because the sync engine will actually look through this field and say, oh, if this record is coupled, it will mark it as coupled. And I also extended the employee list with this coupled to CRM field so that you can filter on it if a record is coupled or not. And then under the employee card extension, I've got, as I said, a bunch of actions for synchronizing. First off, the Dataverse go to worker. You have to call show CRM entity from record ID in the same code unit. This will actually allow you to deep link. So when you click on this action, it will open the coupled record in Dataverse. The next one is synchronize now. This is what it says. It will schedule a job to synchronize that specific record. And then you have to call update one now in CRM integration management. Synchronization log will open the synchronization log for that record, as Djordje showed earlier. And coupling, 2 actions, setup coupling, that will open a coupling page. It will allow you to either create a new one or couple to an existing record in Dataverse. And delete coupling will, of course, remove the coupling so that they are not coupled anymore. Now, the important part is the code unit. This code unit, I've got a bunch of subscribers to allow you to do some stuff. The first one is, in order to use this table, worker table, in the coupling page, you have to subscribe to onGet CDS table number, and you'll check, oh, if it's employee, then this is the table I'm mapping to. So this will actually allow you to use this table as coupling. And the next one is in order to use the list page in the coupling page. So on lookup CRM tables, you'll see if the CRM table is this, and then I'm going to call a procedure. This will set the existing record if it's coupled. So I'm going to use the one that I've talked earlier, the set currently coupled Dataverse worker. So it will actually show that this is coupled to this, but you can, of course, change it from that page. And when you look up that Dataverse list, it will open the list page that I've just created. The next one is on add entity table mapping. This will allow you to do deep linking. So when you come from the Dataverse go to action, it will open Dataverse. And the most important one is on after reset configuration in CDS setup defaults. This is where we add our integration table mapping and field mapping. So I'm adding a table mapping between employee and CDM worker. And I'm also setting a filter on the Dataverse worker because I only want to sync employee type workers. And I'm getting that filter from the record, and I'm setting it on the integration table itself, integration table mapping itself, so that it only syncs employees. And then, of course, these are the fields that I'm mapping, I want to sync. And the last one is easy procedure. It will actually create a recurring job that, as Djordje said, that will run periodically and then synchronize coupled records. So all good. Let's publish this. And then after this publish, I'm going to show you how you can actually use those actions and pages. It's published. So I already have a Dataverse connection enabled. All I have to do is use this action called use default synchronization setup. This will trigger all the events that we subscribe to and insert our table mappings and field mappings. So if you look at the integration table mappings page, you'll see the one that I've just created between employee and worker. And if you look at the fields, these are the fields I've added that I wanted to sync. So all good. Now actually let's go to the employee list and try to create one employee in Dataverse. Let's pick the first one as the Henderson. And this is where I'm going to use those actions that I created in the employee card. Coupling, this will open the coupling page, as I said. So you can actually select here on the Dataverse side, which if there's an existing one you want to couple to, but I'll just create a new one. The synchronization has been scheduled. So if I just switch this to list view, I'll see that coupled to Dataverse, and I hit refresh. Yes, open this. And now I'm going to use the deep linking. So I click on worker, and it will magically open Dataverse, that worker that is coupled to the employee I was on. So all the fields are synced and it's coupled, all good. Let's create a new worker in Dataverse and try to actually create that one in Business Central. So I'll just use my name. And yeah, I'm a software engineer. Yeah, let's save this one and go back to BC and open the list page that I've created for Dataverse workers. Nope, worker, yep. Yeah, you see, I'm actually seeing all the workers in Dataverse, and if I use the action create in Business Central, it will schedule a job. And if I go back to the employee list and just hit refresh, I'm pretty sure it will be created. Yep, and it's coupled to Dataverse. So all good. Now we actually successfully extended the base synchronization with our employee worker mapping and synchronized records bidirectionally. But this is only a small part of it. Without writing any additional code, just with that extension itself, you can utilize all capabilities of the sync engine, like the match-based coupling, auto-resolving, delete, or update conflicts as Djordje showed, and of course many more. If this was a bit too fast or a bit too much code for you, worry not. We actually documented this quite in detail in this documentation page right there. I've also linked it in the slide. And one more additional thing, we actually imported this PTE into BC Tech, so you can actually get the sample codes right away. Before I actually hand it over to Lukasz, I want to show you one small sneak peek. We've been working on a prototype VS Code extension called BC to Dataverse. This will actually automate everything that I've just done. It will create the sample code for you, so all you have to do is publish. More information on this will come soon. We're still working on the prototype, but it will be a VS Code extension like this, and then you'll have some couple of commands. You can generate the list page as I've just did, or generate a proxy table which will run the alt-pgen tool automatically, and you can actually map to existing BC tables like so. So all you have to do is, I want to sync this table, which way, and the which field in Dataverse, or you can use, of course, the constant value. More information on that will come soon. And my last slide will be the customization links. The first two will be the documentation, and the second two will be the two samples that we have on BC Tech. So thank you. I'll actually hand it over to Lukasz now. He's going to talk about virtual entities.
Thank you, Onat and Djordje. So my name is Lukasz Zagłowek, and I'm going to present today the virtual tables for integration with Power Platform. So the agenda for this presentation is that I will do a small introduction what the virtual tables are and how we can utilize that. We show you the new setup experience in Business Central, and then we'll show you a lot of demos, and you will realize how quickly it is actually to build Power Apps and Power Platform once you have the virtual tables. The last demo, I will also show some ProDev developments. You would like to create your custom plugin in Dataverse. This is also possible with virtual tables. So let's get to the introduction. So what is this virtual tables, and how does it relate to the data sync that you already seen from my colleagues? So the virtual table is a virtual data provider in Dataverse, which means that you don't need to replicate the data to Dataverse, to build the apps and power automated flows. What it is that you can generate sort of this virtual table concept, which is a proxy, and then anytime you're doing a CRUD operations, what we do is that we proxy this call to Business Central. And we do support the generation of those virtual tables, as well the CRUD, create, read, and update, and the CAD events, so the events coming from Business Central to Power Platforms. And this is a create, update, and delete. So just under the hood, how does it work under the hood? It's using our OData endpoint. And you can see here, you need to generate those virtual tables first. It's like one-time generation. And then for any operation, we're going to contact a special plugin that it's part of our solution, which is published on the app source. And that plugin is going to contact the BC OData endpoint using the API pages. So that's are the pages that you're actually going to map on your virtual tables. Now, for the CAD events, we will use the existing webhook implementation to push the events back to the plugin, and then the plugin will push it back to Dataverse. So once you have your virtual tables, then you have all the great tooling which is provided by Power Platform. It's Power Up, Power Automate. You can use the Dataverse OData. You can use the plugin, and you can use all the ecosystem which comes with the Power Platform. Just one thing to notice, you can use the built-in API pages or the custom API pages. We have also made the setup experience a little bit easier, and Djordje already showed there's a new checkbox when you run the Dataverse connection setup with the virtual tables, and I'm going to show it in my demo. Some of the basic stuff, how do we generate this virtual table? There's some special convention schema name. In Dataverse, you always have the prefix for your entities, custom entities, and we use the DIN 365 BC for every virtual table we generate. And then we append the API page entity name, the publisher, the group, and version, so that it's going to be a unique schema name. Then there's some requirements that are coming from Dataverse. One of the requirements is that your key needs to be a GUID. There's a hard requirements for Dataverse, so for that, we have already converted our API pages v2 to use the system ID everywhere. And then in Dataverse, you also have the concept of a primary attribute. So this is the attribute actually seen in various places like lookups. And so we choose like the display name if it's provided on the API pages, or any other string, first attribute string. Then we also support like labels, so translations, and the translations are available on your captions of the tables on the field and the enums, so you can also utilize that in your apps. Great, let's then jump to the demo and see how easy it is to create some sample Power App. So before I start anything, I need to set up my Business Central with the Dataverse. And as you could see from Djordje, we have this new switch here, which is enable Dataverse, and then I can just press this one and go ahead and set up my connection here. So what this does is that it automatically discovered the Dataverse environment connected with my tenants. I actually didn't have to even type it in, and then press next. And then it realized that my Dataverse environment doesn't have that app installed for virtual tables. So it doesn't do that automatically yet, but it points me that I should just grab that app from the Power Platform App Store. And there's a link also in that wizard, which you can just click. And that will bring you to the App Store. So this is our app in the App Store. It's currently in the preview. And then once you install that, the wizard will automatically show that it's installed and available. So that's great. The wizard finishes, and then what I can do is I can jump directly to my Power Platform. So I'll just stop for a second here. So the setup from the Business Central is done. I can go back to my Power Platform now and generate those virtual tables I want to use. So I'm doing that by going to a special entity. This entity is called Available Business Central Tables. So I'm just going to search for this here. This is the entity. And here you can see all entities that are available in your Business Central environments. You also have the API root, so you know whether this is like the standard V2 extension, or maybe this is your own extension. And then you generate a virtual table by flipping that visible flag. And by flipping the visible flag, we tell the Dataverse to generate the table, and then you can create your apps on top of it. So this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to create 3 virtual tables here. I'm going to do it for the customer. I'm going to do it for the sales order, and I'm going to do it for the sales order lines. So I will flip the visible flag for all 3 of them, and then I will wait for them to generate. Normally, oops, sorry for that. Normally that takes around 30 seconds or so, but for this demo I have already make it a little bit quicker. So that's it. I'm done with this, the generation part. Then all I need to do is to create some power-ups. So I will do that by going to the power-ups, and I will choose the model-driven power-up. And this is one important thing to notice, that in order to create a model-driven power-up, you actually need to have either the native table or the virtual table. So it's not that obvious to use the connector, for example, for this. So I will now type in the name of the app. I want to create a sales order app. And it's just going to create an empty app. I will add a page to this app, which is related to my sales order entity. And just press add. And basically I have an app ready with the data coming directly from the Business Central without doing anything. So, I mean, that's great, but maybe I would like to customize it slightly, add more columns, change the forms, add maybe lines to the sales orders. So let's do that as well. I will start by adding the column. So I can choose the default view and then edit that view. And here I have available all the columns that were, a part generation from Business Central. So I'll choose a customer name, for example, and then save that and publish. So that's done. Now I can go back to my app and also customize the form, because by default you only see the standard attribute, the number. So it would be great to have a little bit more. So I can edit the main form and just drag and drop the attributes I'm interested in. So in this case, I'm going to choose some phone number and the status of my sales order and the date as well. So it's just as easy as drag and drop. It's the phone number. And I also drag drop the customer ID lookup. And I'm also going to choose the status. Great. Now, it would be even better if I could show the lines for this sales order, but only the lines that actually relate to the sales order. So I can do that as well, because this is something I'm going to show you in a moment. We also set up the relationship between those 3 entities. So the sales order has a relation to the customer because there is a lookup, and also the sales order has a relation to the lines. Because that's how they are actually defined in AL. So what I can do now is to add the component and to add the subgrid, and then choose to only show the data which is related to this record. So I'm going to just add the subgrid and then show related records here, and it's going to show me all or the ones that we have relationship for, and I can choose the lines. So this is the subgrid with the lines. I can just change the label, so I know these are the lines, and I'm done. And I just need to save and publish this up. I can just publish it here and play. And this is how it looks. So basically, I have the list. You can see I have my extra column in my view, and then I can open any of the customers and any of the sales orders. Sorry. And then you can see I have all the fields that I added. I also get the lines for the sales order. I also see the customer. And this is a lookup So I can expand this, and then you will see all the customers here, which I can change. And obviously, this is the CRUD operations, so I can change any data here, and it will be automatically reflected in Business Central because the source is the Business Central. No data is replicated in this setup. Yep, so that's it. My app is ready, but I would like to go back to this relationship for you to understand why actually I could do all of these things. So I can go to my generated table, to the sales order. So I'm going to do here. And go back to relationships. And here is why I was able to choose the lookup and choose the subgrid. It's because we automatically generate the relations. Many-to-one for the customer, this is the lookup, and one-to-many from sales order to sales order line. So this is why it was so easy to create this app. Okay, that concludes my first demo. And this is sort of the summary of these different relations and how does it map from AL to Dataverse. It's basically if you want to map sales order to lines, this is achieved by just putting a part on your page, and it will automatically create the relationship when you create sales order and lines. For lookup, that is basically just defining a field which on the table has a table relation, for example, to a customer. And the last relation is a one-to-one relation. This is similar like one-to-many. You also add a part, but you have a possibility to add this new attribute called multiplicity, and you can set it to 0 or 1. And an example of this would be a relationship from a customer to customer detail, and you could visualize it in your Power App, for example, using a quick view. Yep, so that concludes the first demo. And in the second one, we will do something a little bit more advanced. So you might have already some native entities in your Dataverse environment with some data coming from Business Central, for example, accounts. And you might have synced that data using either the sync solution, which was described, or some Power Automate flows. But you would like to use virtual tables as well in your solution because maybe you don't want to synchronize the other tables from Business Central. For example, in this demo, I'm going to show you how you could add a relationship from the native entity, native table account to the virtual table. In this case, it's going to be sales credit memos. Normally, if you just go to the maker experience in Dataverse, that is not possible to do, but we have added some special entity which allows you to set up the mapping between the native and the virtual. So this is what I'm going to show in this demo. So I will start by going to Power App, to the Dataverse, and to my account table. And you can notice I have already populated some data. As I noticed, it can be a sync solution or some flow. And on top of it, I have also added the account number. So we need to have some sort of a primary key that we're gonna searching or filtering the sales credit memo on. So I'm using the account number. In this case, you can see it here. It's been also populated, and I'll be using this account number to filter the sales credit memo part onto the native entity. And in order to set up the mapping, I also need to create a key for the account entity for this account number. So this is what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna go to keys, and I'm gonna select, create a new key, and I'm gonna select the account number and give it some name. So I'm gonna give it a name of account number. Great. So I have the account number, I have a key for this. Now I also need to find the attribute on the sales credit memo that I want to filter on. So I'm gonna go to sales credit memo and see all the columns. And this is the attribute I'm interested in that I'm going to be filtering. So I'm going to be using account number and then filter the customer number on the sales credit memo. And in that way, I can get the filtering to work. OK, so I have all my data ready. And then I will use a special table that ships with our solution. And that table is called Business Central Table Relation. And here I can just create a new relation, and I will use the form to do that. So I will add a new using a form. And here I just need to fill in a couple of details. I need to fill what's going to be the name of the relation, what's the native table, what's the virtual table, that key that I just created for the account number, and then the mapping, account number to the customer number. So this is what I'm going to do now. So the name account to sales credit memo, the native entity and account, the table key, it was the default prefix account number, virtual table, this is the name, and then mapping from the account number to the customer number. And I need to use the schema names as well, so it's going to be with the 365 BC prefix here. Okay, then save it. And basically now we have the relation. We can just repeat the steps from the first demo to create the app. So I'm going to do this now. I'm going to go to, I would just also, before that, I was going to validate that I actually have the relation. So I was going to search for the memo, and you can see it here. This is the relation that we just created from an account to the sales memo, so from the native to the virtual. Now we are ready to create some apps. So this time I will create an app for the account. So this is also going to be a model-driven app, since this is the fastest to create. So it's going to be an account test app. And I will add a list to the accounts. Yep, that's done. And similarly to the previous demo, I'm going to edit the form to include now the subgrid to the virtual table. So I will use the main for this, edit the main form, and then add the component, which is the subgrid component, similarly like I already did before. Yep, and also choose the related records. Now this entity has a lot of relationships, so I need to find my sales credit memo. Here it is. And then press done. And then save and publish that customization. Now I can also adjust the name of the label, BC sales credit memos. And save and publish. Great. So I can just refresh here my app, go to the form, and this is what I see. So just to repeat, I have my native entity, but I'm able now to actually show a subgrid with a virtual entities coming directly from Business Central, in this case, the credit memos related to this customer. So I'm thinking, okay, so what happens if I actually click that one? Where is it going to bring me to virtual native? Well, now I'm actually on the virtual table, so it's going to open the virtual table form. And I can also add all the customization I've done before, so I can add more. I can add more fields. I can add the lines for the sales credit memos. So I'll do all that functionality and features I have already presented from my first demo. So that concludes the demo number 2. And the last demo I'm going to talk about are the events. So we have added support for our webhook events, also with the relation of virtual tables. So now you can listen to the record added, deleted, and modified on the virtual tables. And because there are virtual tables, you can just use the standard Dataverse connector to listen to this. Then the second part of my demo is going to be more advanced. This is something you can build on using the C# plugin and listen to the same events using the plugin. And this is possible because we actually have this special event defined in Dataverse, and then we can use a different tooling to utilize that. So let's jump to the next demo. So in this demo, I will start with a simple automated cloud flow, and I have already generated some entities, virtual tables, and I will go to my Dataverse connector when row is added or modified, and now I can just choose the type and choose my table name, and I'm going to choose a virtual table, which is a customer, and then the organization scope. So what it will do is now I will get notified when a customer has been added, but similarly, like we have our webhook, we only get the ID for this event. So in order to get the full entity, we need to have this extra step, get row by ID. So I'm going to add this extra step here and choose the same table, which is the customers, and choose the ID from the previous step. So that allows me to get the full customer that was created on the Business Central. And now for the demo, I will just send some email to myself with the data and show you that I actually get the right customer. So I'm an admin here, so I'm going to send it to myself, and I will put the subject name that the customer has been added, and I will put in the body, I will put the display name and the customer number. So that's it. I can save the flow, and this is also an interesting part. So now, because I'm saving that, and because the event is related to virtual table, it knows it's a Business Central related table, it will create the subscription on the Business Central site for this customer entity. So now I can go back to the to Business Central, create a customer, and then you can go back to the flow once this is done and see the run history that the actual customer was captured by my flow. It's normally gonna take around 1 minute, but I have speed it up for the sake of the demo. So here you go. You can see that this customer with this ID was created. Great. So now the last part of the last demo is to do some Visual Studio development. So for this, I have to install some special extension. It's called the Power Platform extension, and that allows me, I need to zoom in a little bit here, that allows me to create a number of projects or solutions. So for this demo, I will use this special Power Platform solution template. And I will create this one, and then it will ask me to sign in to my Dataverse environment. And I have already provided my credentials, so it's just gonna fetch every metadata from Dataverse. I'm gonna choose the default solution here, and I'm gonna choose the plugin project. And I'm gonna give it some name here, in this case BC TechDays plugin project. So that's it. This is done. I have my plugin project here, but it's completely empty right now. But I can also use a special window called Dataverse Explorer, which is showing me also all events available to me. And now it's worth to notice that I have this event catalog, and under the event catalog, because I generated the virtual tables, now I have this special catalog only for Business Central. So once I expand this one, you will be able to see my tables, and you'll be also be able to see the events that are available for those tables. So the CAD events. So for this demo, I will subscribe to the created event, and I will write a very small plugin. So there's a lot of nice tooling. So once you create that subscription, it will auto-generate some code for you and generate a step which is needed when you when you subscribe to events in Dataverse, and then it will create this template here, and a lot of to-dos that you can fill it in. So with this, I will first try to get the ID of that memo that was created. And this is what I'm going to do, just get it from the input parameter, the entity reference. Then the next part is similar like in my flow. I would like to get the full entity for the credit memo, and I will retrieve it using the default organization service, just retrieve by ID. And here we have it here. I'm just retrieving the sales credit memo. I'm just going to fix the using statement here. So now I have my credit memo, and from this credit memo, I would like to get the customer number, like so, just getting the attribute. Now I have all my data available. And then I will try to query the account with this customer number, so I will have a small retrieve account code, which basically takes the customer number and then query the accounts for this account number. Great. So once I fix some imports here, I will create the task just to notify an account that the credit memo has been created. So the last element is to creating a task. And here we go. Oh, this is a task here. I just created. Yes. Just sending some description with the number and the regarding object, the account. So that's it. I'm done with this. Now I just need to build that project and deploy. But before, Dataverse actually requires me to sign that project. So I'm just quickly going to create the signing key and sign this assembly with a new key. And just type the name of the key and the password. Great. And then I'm ready to deploy this project. So what it will do now, it will build and deploy and create that subscription on the Business Central side as well. And I can validate the subscription has been created by refreshing the Power Platform Explorer. And this is what I'm just going to do now. I'm just going to refresh this one and go back to my registrations. And you can see it here. Now I have a subscription on the created event of this sales credit memo. So all good. I can now go back to Business Central, create some sales credit memos, and see if my plugin is actually working. So I will create a new one. And then add some quantity, save it. Go back to my Power Up. And then it's also going to take around a minute, but I have sped it up for this demo, so I can just refresh this here. And you can see this is the task that I just created. This is the sales memo that was created on Business Central side. And you can also see that in that subgrid that we created in the second demo. So that concludes my last demo. And just what's coming next. So we're still in preview with the virtual table solutions, but we want to do a lot of investments in the upcoming release. We want to add more events. We're looking at these external business events. We're looking at expanding the set of entities that we ship out of the box. We're looking at the different features we can do more with Power Platform. And we want to GA that extension, that solution for Dataverse. So that's all for me. I will pass it on now to Enrico and Ayrton for the native connector. Thank you.